I'm elected president, I'm not going to put a single lobbyist in my cabinet. Oh, really? I'm going to close down Guantanamo Bay. Really? I'm going to pull out our troops in 180 days. Oh, really? How many times can you get sold a bill of goods before finally you just throw your hands up? And no matter what, everybody, you could say, I don't agree with his foreign policy, I don't agree with anything else. But if there's one thing the man is, it's consistent and honest. And even if you don't agree with his policy, vote for him on that basis alone. Because how many politicians can you honestly say you've seen in the past 100 years that have been honest like him? I can't.
Well, that's what's happened is the establishment realized to control a big free market system and milk it, you don't have to invent anything. You've just got to buy all the politicians, and then you've got control of the economy. And they've leveraged American wealth to take over most of the world. And then they're so greedy, they have this post-industrial plan to implode things to take it over. And now everything's mounting against them. But from all I've studied, the Queen of England, David Rockefeller, Lord Rothschild, they're at the top of the pyramid.
Absolutely.
They're all from a different 2 or 3 generations ago. They are not connected, even though they've got top think tank advisors. And what's scary is David Rockefeller is fading, in his wheelchair, and they just think they're going to hammer down and pull through on this. And I've looked at every possible scenario. They're all hellish. But at the end of any of them, they aren't in charge. Right. They aren't in charge at the end of any of them. And they don't care. They're like, well, damn the torpedoes, go straight at them.
This is a battle of good versus evil. When you boil it down to it, the nitty-gritty, it's good versus evil. A guy that I do a radio show 3 nights a week, and one of my regular guests is one that comes on your show, Alfred Adisk. And we talk about this all the time, about how this really boils down to good versus evil. And the problem is, folks, that they understand, they know that we hold the power. It's incumbent upon them. The only way that they are going to have success in any of this is to keep the wool pulled over your eyes long enough for them to establish this control grid, this big
Exactly. That's why they always
structure.
try to trick us into waving things and treat us like children and try to scare us. And Alfred Adask is great. Now you have your show. A lot of people listen to it, Orion Talk Radio. And I know that, you usually, well, I guess you do use your name. How are you able to do this working with a high-level security clearance? Has it gotten to that point where you're, obviously you're covering stuff that's public, but I know that a lot of people in government are awake. How many people are awake inside the system you work in?
Well, I would say probably about half. And one of the reasons why I went civil service, folks, is simply this. Because you can't affect change unless you get your hands dirty, get in there, and change it. It's simple as that. You want to reduce spending within the federal government? Well, get a government job, get in there, and change it. And that was my mentality when I got into it. It was like, you know what? I'm going to get in there and I'm going to change things. I'm going to change the way people think. I'm going to make it so that the typical deadwood federal employee that sits there all day, twiddles their thumbs and collects a paycheck, I'm going to make them work. And so that's been my mentality since day one, is to get in there to make change. Because at the end of the day, as a public servant, I am the vanguard. I'm just one of many, but I'm the vanguard of the taxpayers' money. One thing that you'll hear in federal government all the time, if you ever get in there, is that it ain't my money. Oh, really? It's not your money? So you have to change the thought patterns. And by doing that, people start to see, hey, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. And that
but I think Bloomberg couldn't understand why federal employees are Ron Paul supporters, because they're awake. They get it. They understand if we keep doing this, there's no future, period.
Exactly right. Resources are finite, and you can't keep this level of spending up infinitely. Unless you get somebody with the cojones to take an eraser to the ledger and just say, you know what, this is all fiat anyway, it doesn't count, let's just start all over. But I don't think you're going to see that. So you have to do things a responsible way and rein in spending, which is why
you got to do it. But again, the bankers, the finance oligarchs have this idea: bankrupt everybody and we'll get control. But then they fried everything, but they don't care as long as they're in control. In closing, after this interview's over, other points that you wish you would have made. Let's make them. And let's go back into how big this is, that they're openly building the force structure for COG around a blue-red system where trusted government, trusted contractor, military running it, military running the emergency camps that they'll sell as for helping the public. Things collapsed. They're not going to just come grab dissidents day one. It's going to be, well, the camps help people. The Army stopped the crime in New Orleans and Chicago, all being announced. Oh, the Army's coming. Big Army, little Army. All of this is going on, and there they are selling this program. I mean, this is a big deal. Now, the FEMA camps connected to the military, connected to FEMA, being activated, and a blue versus red force setup, which is the same thing they've used in countries that our government occupies.
Exactly right. And one thing people need to understand is that there are people within the government, both military and civilian, that in that time would not turn a weapon on their own people and would not go and enforce it. But I will say this, there is a precedent. 2005, we had Katrina, and what happened down there? I truly believe that, in a way, that was a dry run of things to come.
No, now they're announcing this is a model for America today on CNN. This is a model. We're going to put troops everywhere. The people want troops. They loved it in New Orleans.
And if you look at the polls and see how Ron Paul is surging, do the people really want troops on the street?
No, of course they don't. It's like saying you want a hole in the head.
So you have a tremendous propaganda campaign underway against our own people, and that needs to change. So that's why I can't encourage people enough to get your information from alternative media sources like Infowars, like Orion Talk Radio, all of that kind of stuff, so that you are aware of what is really going on.
Well, obviously, that's a good point, but now it's all manifesting. The internet censorship, the calls for arrest of citizens, it's here. There's no more time to live in denial. People shouldn't see this information and take it for granted. It's now time for banner hangs on highways. It's now time to call and talk radio. It's time to go visit your mayor, your police chief. Let me tell you, 4 years ago, the Austin police chief would laugh at me in person. Now, behind the scenes, he gets me by the arm and says, well, I can't even say what he said. But let me tell you, they're being told stuff that's really waking them up now.
Yeah. And well, that's the thing, is that there's no veil of secrecy anymore.
No, this is slitting America's throat. You got to decide what side you're on. You're with these foreign banks that think they're going to march the military and police out against the people, or you're with America. There's no more time to play games.
Don't be hot or cold, It will make the decision. Be hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm, Don't sit on the fence. And that's the thing. And I truly believe that thought process in the United States is there simply because people still have too much to lose. When they look at it at the end of the day, they say, man, I really disagree with what's going on.
But you're going to lose everything. That's the trick. They're going to lose everything if you don't stand against them.
Absolutely. But they still, at the end of the day, think, well, maybe if we wait it out, things will go back to the way they are. Well, guess what, folks? It's not going back to the way it was. It's simple as that. The days of the white picket fence and the nice house and everything like that, it's over. So now it's time to take our country back and save the republic. And the only way that happens is if everybody collectively, regardless of race, of income, of all that, take all the divisive tactics, the left, the right paradigm, all that false, divisive tactics that they employ against you, see through it, band together, and let's beat this thing.
I agree with you. Let's go back to the DOD in closing. What is it like? Because that's about the number I've gotten from every expert and what I've seen. About half are awake in some degree. The other half tend to get more clingy and are like, arrest everyone, and it's wonderful, and, well, I'm not bad, so let them arrest other citizens. The others are like good Nazis, good commies. They'll do whatever they're told. Or can we wake them up? What is it like to have half the DOD awake and the other half just ready to do whatever they're told, ship grandma off to a FEMA camp if she doesn't suck Obama's boots?
Well, I would say that's a little too general. Let's just say half are awake. They know what's going on. They're just kind of afraid. 25% just don't care. They're just like, hey, man, NFL's on Sunday. Woohoo! All right. Then the other 25% are gung-ho, anti-Muslim, 9/11, that's the way it was. That's the way, the government commission.
Well, yeah, no, they'll say, we're taking an old lady's house. She's a Baptist, but Al-Qaeda. And they just, yeah, exactly. You tell them Al-Qaeda, you're like, but Al-Qaeda was given control of Libya. I don't want to hear that. Exactly. It's like a religion.
Right, exactly right. So, I would say probably about a quarter of it is people that are just gung-ho to the core. They believe everything that they said. They're the good soldier. Don't ask questions.
It's like an attack dog that'll run into whatever you tell it to do.
Exactly right. But